We are going to be exploring ChatGPT, PT, and AI in education, talking about the paradigm shift for the classroom. We have our fantastic leader in today's charge, Dr. Julian Reed, here with us. And a little bit about Kognity. Today's webinar is sponsored by Kognity. Kognity's goal is to improve education by providing the highest quality science resources for high school teachers to maximize their ability to impact students around the world. Kognity is our award-winning platform that first launched in the IB market and is a global education technology company that has been used in over 100 countries worldwide. Our aim is to ensure that teachers have easy access to a platform that merges both pedagogy and technology, similar to how science actually is in the real world. To learn more about Kognity, please feel free to visit our website at kognity.com/NGSS, or you can go ahead and scan that QR code that you see on the screen, and that will take you straight to our page. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Kognity's esteemed advisory board member, Dr. Julian Reed.
Hello, everybody. I don't know about you, Sasha, but I'm making a vacation list of where I want to go now from all the places in the chat. Looks very exciting as one of those places. It's time. It's time for a summer vacation here in the United States before long. We'll pick our list from this. So glad you're able to join us today. I'm in Memphis, so I'm not in an international, wonderful location, but it's beautiful here today, so we're all good. Excited to be here. And I, like she said, I'm on the advisory Kognity, and they've been awesome with whom to work or with which to work. I'm an international consultant, presenter. I do research. I'm an adjunct professor at 3 universities. I also was in K-12 education for over 25 years in the classroom in elementary school, tech coordinator, science coordinator, and then for 17 years as director of academic technology. So during that time, and then during my time of consulting now since I left the schools, I have seen so much change, and things change rapidly, and that's AI and ChatGPT. And people are like, what is that all about? And some of you are already using it, and that's awesome. Some of you are like still trying to figure out what it is. Some of you are a little bit afraid. Some of you are curious. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's exciting, and it's yet one more tool in our toolbox that we can be aware of and know about and learn to use in ways that are important and relevant. So we're going to get and talk about that today. You've already seen who I am, and you've seen me, so we won't bother that. But you can contact me if you want to later. So they'll have that information for you. And like we said, this presentation, all the links and everything will be available later, so you can just sit back and relax and don't feel like you have to be involved in anything that requires note taking or anything. It's just a time to really relax and enjoy and learn. If nothing else, for those of you for whom this is really new, then this is a time that you can learn the vocabulary, just gain that basic understanding. So we'll talk about the what of AI and ChatGPT. We'll talk about how, why, what are the implications for education for both teachers and students, and then what are some of the tools. And if we don't get to all the tools today, which may happen, then we'll be okay, because they're all in the presentation and they're listed in order with links for you, and you can see them with examples. So moving on then and going to the next one, there we go. What is our first topic, and what is AI? What is artificial intelligence? And the funny thing is, it's been around for years and years. We use it every day. We don't even think about it. It's implementing itself in ways that are new with ChatGPT, but it's just computer systems that can perform tasks that human intelligence and visual perception and speech are involved in, and no longer does it need the human in the middle of it. Now the computers can start doing some of those things. They can translate languages. They have speech recognition. Some of these you've already used. Some of these are going to be newer to you, and it's really exciting. So think about in your home, if you have an Alexa or an Amazon Show, it's going to be there. You can use it. It'll suggest maybe a video or a story you want to read or watch next time or create. It happens with suggestions that you get when you go shopping on Amazon. You might like this. I bought something yesterday. Now they decided you want all these other things. Christmas, that's always a problem if you share an account because you can see what everybody's looked for and what they're shopping for that you might be getting. But then you also have Pizza Hut has this little robot that goes around and delivers pizzas without anybody human delivering them. They're on campuses in several countries and states now, and they just go around the campus and deliver pizzas. If you have one of those automatic robotic vacuums, lucky you for one thing, that's AI. Look at the self-driving cars that are out there. How about Siri? Probably she's going to answer me. Or Alexa, who's sitting behind me. I think I unplugged her. Alexa, Cortana, all of those are all parts of AI. So things like that are just built into everything we use every day, and we just don't think about it. And AI has been around for years and years. But what is ChatGPT? And the way I keep it in order is it's alphabetical because I used to always get confused. So if you have that problem, just go alphabetical GPT. Well, it was released in November. It was only released to the public in March. So I'm going to show you how rapidly it's caught on, and probably by now it's even faster. So GPT, you don't have to remember this or know it. It stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. That doesn't make a lot of sense, right? But basically what it is, it's taking your conversational dialogue, human interaction, without having to really put into coding or any special languages in a prompt and get results. They're not always accurate, so we'll talk about that. But you can get some amazing results that are very helpful, not just in text, in images, in presentations, in educational tools, all kinds of ways that we'll talk about. So thinking about ChatGPT, which is one part of OpenAI, that's where you can start, but it's built into a lot of things now. It's been released to other companies, so you'll see it in Google Bard, you'll see it in Bing with Microsoft, you'll see it in Adobe Express, you'll see it in Canva, you'll see it all kinds of places now. So it isn't just there, but that's usually where you start, is learning, make an account in AI.com, and then create ChatGPT, which I'll show you. So look at this. Took 5 days to reach 1 million users for ChatGPT. Netflix took 3.5 years. Kickstarter, Airbnb, 2.5. So you can see that and see how long it took compared to the 5 days. So people are just, jumping at it like crazy, trying to figure out what it is. And you'll see ChatGPT versus, or just sometimes you'll just see GPT-4. Sometimes you'll see ChatGPT-4. 4 is the newer model. It even has, or the newer version, it even has more capability than the original version. It's not free. So it is a paid service. And I do think you still have a waiting list for that. But you can do everything you want to do as a beginning user and with your students with the initial one, ChatGPT. So just so you'll know in case you hear them both. So the next part, how do I do that? Well, I already said you're going to make an account in AI. OpenAI is where you're going to go to get the account, and then you'll be in ChatGPT. If you go down to the bottom at this screen, you can see there's like a bar, like a search window you would use on, Google or Bing or whatever to search for. And that's where you can type in natural language a prompt. And depending on how specific your prompt is, you're going to get different results. So you can prompt, I wrote one the other day, I'll talk to you about it. I asked it to write me a poem about Memphis and dogwoods and renewal, and it wrote me an amazing poem. You can ask it to write discussion prompts. You can ask it to write a paragraph or an essay on a certain topic, and you can define the parameters as specifically as you want. And then you can refresh it. So there's lots of things about this that are conversational, controversial is probably what I should say, that we'll be talking about. So lots of things going on with ChatGPT. So these are just some examples that you have. It remembers what you said early in the conversation. It's not going to remember tomorrow what you said or in your next prompt. It'll remember right this time what you said. And you can follow up with corrections and ask it to do it again. And it does have some limitations in that, like I said, it's not always correct. Teachers are afraid of cheating, and we're going to talk about that. Used inappropriately in one of my undergrad classes. Yeah, it was. So we've had a conversation about it. But that's part of the learning. It's not something we don't want to know. We need to know because this is the world today. And if we're going to let our students be prepared for it and be good digital citizens with that good um, information technology knowledge, then we need to be sharing this with them in appropriate ways for the instructional goal, for their age level, those types of things. So that's my opinion. Though, why would we want to do that? Why should I care about AI in students? Well, digital literacy, learning about the benefits and the perils. And I'll tell you about what a friend of mine, Steve Dembo, has been doing in his sixth grade classroom. Because it can be used down in lower grades or even higher up in high school. He's doing some great things. And I think he's more than sixth grade. He does, I think, STEM for multiple grades in middle school. But anyway, you can look at the insight and the benefits and the perils that we'll talk about. Also, giving students and yourself the confidence and understanding about how to use these tools for teaching and learning. Sure, they're out here, but how do I use them for teaching and learning? And then also preparing our students, like I said, for their future global workplace. It's being used everywhere globally. This is something the United Nations is even focused on, artificial intelligence, for several years now. And it's being used all around the world, but we're seeing it even most recently in North America. So why should we care again? Considering AI ethics. So what's ethical about it? How do I know that it's not biased? How do I know that the information is correct? And how can I use it in an ethical way where it's not going to be doing anything to be damaging or hurtful to someone? And is it available for everyone? Are people in low socioeconomic areas, do they have the same ability to access it? So thinking of those types of things is accessible. And then it's a new paradigm of education. I think that we really need to look at this and rethink where we are. We've talked about this a lot, especially since COVID and the pandemic. We need to rethink what we're doing with education. We're seeing a lot of that with colleges and universities, moving away from SATs and ACTs and moving to portfolios, rethinking, do we really need to be testing the way we are? And it's time for really, yet again, to be considering a paradigm shift. And how can we do things that are really going to take our students to the next level of deeper learning, creativity, deeper conversation about what they're learning, that metacognition, and really reflecting on their learning. So thinking about how you can do that and not be locked into the way we've always done it is a difficult thing. And you may be excited about it, but yet you still have to match, state or ministry or whatever requirements. So it's kind of a hard dilemma, but the more we can promote it, I think the closer we'll be there with that. And the ethics, how do we know it's ethical? And there's some bias in it. And we'll talk about the bias because there's some bias in it. And then how do you fix that? So those are just some of my thoughts. And so thinking about equity for all learners, thinking about inclusion, this is really an important thing. We want to make sure that everyone can access it because it's important. We don't want to just be the privileged few who can access it. We want to support those with limitations physically or cognitively. And one of the things that I've seen recently, just yesterday, I don't know if any of you do Be My Eyes. Are you aware of that for blind people? They can use the program Be My Eyes, which I've done for years, and they can call you. And you'll just get a call randomly from Be My Eyes, and you can choose to accept or reject it. And it's a person who is not sighted calling you for information like, can you tell me what yogurt this is? One person asked me. Or can you tell me, I'm on vacation at the pool, I don't know where the shade is. Can you show me where the shade is? Can you read this label to me? Well, now with Be My Eyes, what they're doing to use AI, ChatGPT, and different technologies like this, if for the beta ones, they're holding up their phone and it's scanning what's in the refrigerator, and they can tell them what's in the refrigerator and what they might want to buy next. So ways that we can use this for special needs. Another one is this glove you see here, where they wear it, and when they're wearing it, it's their signing who doesn't have the ability to speak, they're deaf, is signing with it, or speak well, I should say, but they're signing with it. And it instantly translates it on a phone into like 40 languages. So you can see what they're saying. The reverse is possible to you. So lots of options for that. And the one thing I didn't mention ago while I wanted to, when I was talking about Pizza Hut, which is unrelated to this, it's kind of that squirrel running by that I just thought of, is there are also two McDonald's in the United States that have no human employees. Everything is done through technology and AI. And where's the technology end and the AI begins? And that's kind of a blurry line. It depends on what they're doing with it. So what are the implications? A lot of them for educators, for students, like we talked, copyright and ethics, assessment learning, and accuracy of information. So we're going to talk about this. We want to streamline our workflows. Teachers work really hard. They spend a ton of time trying to give individual feedback to students, creating lessons, creating slide presentations. ChatGPT can help with all of that. They can help. I've made some amazing slide presentations with different tools, and no, they're not perfect, but they give me that framework. And now I can go through and, massage them and edit them and add the images I want. And I don't have to start from the very beginning. It could take a long text and it could summarize the text for me. It can also be programmed, or the prompts can be delivered specific ways that will provide opportunity for feedback and giving specific individual feedback to students. It can create rubrics. So it can streamline those workflows you have every day to give you more time to do other things. So things like presentations, like I said, rubrics, lesson plans. One of them made the most wonderful lesson plans and outlines. I was doing polar bears and environmental sustainability and climate change, and came up, because I've done that several times globally, and popped out like I couldn't have written it better. It was great. I still had to fix it and make it mine, but it gives me that beginning start. So I'm not just spending all my time creating that. I can be more creative and promote group learning with my students and with other work that I'm doing. So another one is more time for creating and less for doing, which is what we've been talking about. And then more time also to be innovative in your teaching. It's a lot. Teachers have been through a lot in the last few years with everything thrown at them, with the pandemic and everything moving to virtual, and now trying to come back. And some of us are still exhausted. It's been so tiring. And we haven't had time. All we can do is just try to, are our kids caught up? Are they on target now? And trying to get them to do one more thing is difficult sometimes, but allowing time for ChatGPT to do these kinds of things give us much more time to be innovative and creative, and more time to spend with our students and our families. So we really need to think big for a picture, like reframe education for a future with something that's changing daily. I will tell you, it's really interesting. ChatGPT is changing rapidly. You may log into something today and it's free, and tomorrow it's a paid service. You may say there are 5 really good ones for making images today, and tomorrow there'll be 20. So everything is changing. And what we want to think about with students is, how do we use this in a good way? How do we promote good for students and for the greater world by using it in positive ways? So thinking about how to engage, and kids will be engaged. So we'll talk more about that as well. So for students, and this is kind of where that will come in. This is what Steve Dimbo's done with some of his in Chicago. So I love this. And I talk about Steve because we've been at 2 events lately that we've in the Chicago land, Joliet and Lake Forest, about ChatGPT and AI. And what he has his students do is, like, he'll have half his class research a topic, or he'll have half his class do the research with ChatGPT, and then they'll analyze the differences, and they'll see what's accurate, what's not. Often they make the ChatGPT can make things up, like, or they'll also not be accurate. They'll give information that's inaccurate. And if you look at the references that they sometimes provide, not just on OpenAI, but other ones, they look like pretty good references till you go look and they don't even exist, or they don't match the content. So that is being improved. That's something that's being worked on quite a bit, I think, to try and make it more accurate. Yes, and it's not quite there yet. One thing I want to mention that Steve talks about a lot when we've been together, we've had this discussion, is that when we're thinking about artificial intelligence and ChatGPT, we think it's always changing, always adapting, growing with us, and that's not always true, because there are really 4 kinds of artificial intelligence. One is reactive. It has no memory. Remember the big chess games that IBM had with Watson and everything? That's no memory. It just responds to stimuli. That's the lowest level. Then you have limited memory. So, like I said, ChatGPT will remember things while we're working together to improve its responses, but don't remember what we did later. Now, a lot of that data set that's in there was collected over as a closed data set. It's no longer open. It's kind of like the black box or something. So you can't, it's not changing. It's pulling information from a certain time period. And if you ask ChatGPT something about, let's say the NBA finals right now in the US for basketball, if you ask them about that, it's not going to know it because that data set's closed and it hasn't adapted or adjusted. So that is true in some types of AI and ChatGPT, not true in others. So some of them are more of a closed data set, some are growing and adjusting. So it does have that limited memory. The third kind of AI is theory of mind. And that's where it understands the needs for other intelligent options. And we're moving into that realm where it's getting more intelligent. I will tell you, Google had a most interesting 60-minute sequence lately on AI that was really interesting about some of the future and moving into that theory of mind. If you want to pull that up and look at that, was quite interesting. And then self-awareness is the fourth level, and that's really when they're starting to be humanly intelligent and self-aware, and that's way up in the future. And how do you keep that in the box and not have it go crazy and take over the world? Well, it's not going to, not at this point. We are, it is that closed data set. It's closely monitored by the people who are designing it, and it's not there. It's not getting information like that. It's not taking information like that. Although Google found that there were some ways that their AI not really ChatGPT, but their AI robots were coming up with new ways to do things when they were playing soccer against each other that had programmed into them. So they are starting to adapt, but they're not going to take over the world. So that's science fiction. That's your movies. So that's just kind of what to share is sharing authentic research. Steve also had them write poetry, ChatGPT, or a story versus real, and everyone unanimously in his class voted for the real versions rather than the ChatGPT. So how do you know information is accurate in research and writing? And like I said, I had a student recently when all of a sudden he had these answers to reflection questions that were just like academic graduate research. Is like, that's not his voice. That's not his tone. I don't know where that came from. That's not even the answer to the information that was provided in the video he was to have watched or accompany this. And we had just done a unit on AI and ChatGPT, so I had a pretty good guess where that came from. And when I ran it through an AI checker, it gave me like an 80% return that it was ChatGPT. Yes, and I have a poem that I'll probably show later if we get to that slide. The one I told you about springtime in Memphis and renewal in dogwoods. I went to 5 AI checkers, and guess what? They all said it was human. So you can't trust the resources. You can't trust the facts. You can't trust what the AI checkers are doing yet. They're working really hard to get those better, but they're not there yet. So you just have to know your kids. If you know your students, whether they're in college, grad students, undergrads, whether they're in, K-12 or, in other countries, whatever year they are in their school program, if you know your students, you know their tone of voice, you know the types of things that they're going to respond with, and what types of assessments or assignments are you giving. That's another consideration we'll talk about in a minute. So moving on, thinking about copyright, this is another thing with students and ethics. Who owns a copyright? How do you cite it? APA did just come out, the American Psychological Association did just come out with a suggestion for citing ChatGPT, but the references within it are often incorrect. So that's another thing too, is how do you cite it? When do you cite it? And I think a lot of it is acknowledge you used it or how you used it. It's awesome for doing things like Steve had they were doing different types of activities and they had to have story starters and they couldn't think of one. And I can't think of the word right now that it starts with no, I can't think of it. But anyway, one of the students just was struggling. So he said, put it into ChatGPT and see, get some ideas for how you're going to write your story or whatever it is you're going to do. That's a great way. Get those beginning ideas, get those, beginning thoughts, and then take those and make it your own. So there are some really good ways to use it. Other things, it was Mad Libs. That was the word I couldn't think of, and it doesn't start with an R. So yeah, for stories and the Mad Libs is how his student used it, because everyone in the class was doing Mad Libs, and that student was just stuck, and that just helped him tremendously. So we've talked about that already. Making interactive lessons, so students can have interaction in their lessons that are responding in ways that are appropriate on their level and their responses, and feeding them differently. So that's another great way. Another way is this can make flashcards and practice questions for review. They just put their words in there, spits out their flashcards, spits out practice questions for review. So great ways they can use that for that type of thing. Just some of those articles are so long, and how do you make them shorter? So summarizing large articles and class notes. And for those of the students who have, problems with reading or their ESL or something, ChatGPT can also translate it. There are other things like Immersive Reader by Microsoft that can give you great translations. So there's lots of ways to use it in those types of opportunities with students to help them with their growth and with their learning. And another one, there's spelling, grammar, and writing checker. So I don't know if you use Grammarly. Oh my gosh, if I didn't have Grammarly, my comments in my grad courses and my undergrad courses would be a hot mess, let me tell you. But with Grammarly, it's helping me, and I have the free version. I haven't done the paid, which is awesome. It's helping with that, the spelling, the grammar, and the writing checking. So with ChatGPT, they have a new AI capability that's coming out, if it hasn't come out since I checked it last week. So that's another place it's being used. And like we said, how do we cite it? And another one is images. If it's making you an image, because you can tell AI, and I'm going to show you this, how to create an image that you want with all these variables in the prompt, these different words in the prompt, and it will make you like 4 versions or 5, and they'll mix them up again. How do you cite them? And again, if I was the original artist and they did a mashup of mine with other things, should I get credit for that? So a lot of those things are still being decided. They're up for discussion when they're compilations of others' work. And that's, part of what we need to be thinking about is copyright. Who owns the copyright? Who owns the ethics? At the very least, students should acknowledge that they've used it in some way, in my opinion. So, and the bias we talked about. So how do you prevent bias? And this is a really good conversation to have, because there is bias built into it sometimes. And so how do you decide who determines those parameters? And then we had this really deep conversation about, okay, if I go in and as like a programmer, I'm going to reprogram GPT and refine those parameters so it's not biased. Now it's matching what I want it to be, and that makes it biased. So that's another thing. Where is bias end and where does it start, and how do we keep the bias out of it? And so that's another thing to think about as well. And I know my friend Mark West with UNESCO and the United Nations wrote this a few years ago, if I blush if I could, and you'll have the link to download it. It's a paper, and like the second, not the top article, but the second learning outcome or article in it is about bias in AI. And I love it because when Alexa first came out, some of the responses that they were getting and people's responses to Alexis were incredibly biased against women. So thinking about how do you control that bias? How do you provide equity if the students in a rural area don't have access to it, but the others in urban areas or in remote countries, I've worked in a lot of remote countries, don't have access? How do we make that equitable? And yet it's an opportunity for those types of countries and education organizations and ministries to really harness the power of this, to use it in refugee camps. I worked in Jordan in a refugee camp, to use it in other developing nations. So thinking about that and making a workplace opportunity for everyone. Take a breath. Okay. So I think a lot of this is down to how are you teaching your kids to learn? How are they learning? How are they assessed? So focusing on things like creativity, project-based learning, critical thinking, promoting deeper learning, not just those rote, quizzes and exams and tests. And does everything require a paper? And as a teacher, do you want to read If you have 30 kids in 5 sections, you want to read 150 papers. So how can I redo this? Yes, if you teach writing, that's so critical. But there are other ways too that you can develop more personalized learning, where students have student agency and they have voice and choice in how they learn. They have voice and choice in how they demonstrate understanding. And I will say one thing right here about Kognity, because they have an amazing opportunity within this to have many opportunities for demonstrating understanding and several opportunities for learning, giving students choice boards. So if you personalize your learning, if you take higher level different types of assessments and not just tests, then you won't have to worry about ChatGPT if you're having reflections on their learning. So it's also, I think, a good time that we've talked about for a long time to think about how do we assess our students and how do we promote student agency. So a lot of schools, a lot of districts, a lot of countries, whatever, are thinking we should block it. Just like we used to say, we should block chat. Now we should block ChatGPT. We should block YouTube. And unless it's a bandwidth issue, which I would understand that, they can look at it at home. They can do it on their phones. They can do it on other devices. But by default, should a school district or a school or a ministry or whatever, should they block ChatGPT? Should students disclose where they use it, how they use it, and should they cite it? These are all considerations. Well, it's really interesting because I asked ChatGPT if schools should ban ChatGPT. And you know what? This is the answer I got. It was pretty accurate. And for all the reasons we talked about before, I think that, just thinking digital literacy, let's take it and use it in powerful ways for the good to promote student learning, to promote teaching, to promote understanding, to give you more time, and to make them understand it, know the vocabulary, and realize how they can use it in positive ways. So that's my thought, but I think it's a big conversation for a lot of schools, universities. And there's an article here about should schools block ChatGPT that was in Education Week lately that you can also read. So I in conversation, you're probably thinking, oh, we need to go block this right away, or maybe we take it and use it in useful ways. I don't have that answer for you. Everything has their own culture, their own context, age limitations, different things like that. So there are a lot of things. I will say they're building a lot more safeguards in the ChatGPT. You can't often talk about violence. You can't talk about anything like nudity. So there's a lot of bumper guards being put up to try to protect students and keep them in a more safe type of environment within ChatGPT. But it's not a credible source in academia. It's like years ago, the discussion about Wikipedia. But if you're really doing something like real research, it's not a credible source. And sometimes, like I said, the information is just wrong. But remember, it's based on algorithms, not facts. So the algorithms are creating this. The programming is creating this, not necessarily facts. And what tools do you have? So we have given you a lot. And I want you to think back about that time when you first went virtual with during the pandemic. All those tools we were getting. Here's 150 tools you can use this week to engage your students when you're teaching virtually. And it became overwhelming. And I think in many ways, this technology with AI and ChatGPT can get there and be overwhelming in some ways. But think about the purpose. What are you doing with it? What is your goal, curricular goals? What are your curricular objectives? But think about all those things. What is the real reason you're engaging students in an activity with ChatGPT? That doesn't mean don't do it. That just means think about it and be purposeful. For you, keep learning and explore and have fun with it, because that's how you're going to know. You have to know the tool, and this is research driven. You have to know the tool and feel like you have a great sense of efficacy in the personal use of that tool and an understanding of that tool before you'll ever integrate it and use it well. So for you, go on and learn it, go on and play with it, explore it, and then think back, how can I use this in a positive way in my teaching and learning? So we've given you a lot here. They're going to be available to you as we talked about. in the PDF of the presentation that you can download. Here are some of the image tools that are probably the most popular, and they're changing daily. Firefly is still beta. You have to request. I think ChatGPT 4, you have to get on a waiting list maybe. So different things like that. So here's some for image tools. But what they're so cool about is for image tools, this is a site called This Cat Does Not Exist. These are not real cats. They're montages of cats. Here's another one with This Person Does Not Exist. Well, sometimes you want a cat or a human being of some kind that looks a certain way in a presentation, but you can't find one that's copyright free, so you can create one. So there are ways to do those types of things. Dolly is one that people use a lot, Dolly 2 for that, so you can look at that one. This is one that I used with Dolly. I wanted a human head shape with circuit boards and blue colors to illustrate AI. I wanted these for my presentation because I couldn't find enough. It gave me all those options and it would let me remix them if I wanted to. And those are free to download and free to use. Another one I did was I want a golden retriever chasing a tennis ball by the ocean shore. And those are the images it gave me. So you can see how even young students could come up with images to use for creative writing or whatever they want to. And those can be done through just those normal prompts, those conversational prompts in ChatGPT. Midjourney's Discord is another one that people use a lot, and you can get super detailed in these. If you look at this later, this is a really smart Bangladesh white shirt and red pants standing in front of a young man with a red shirt, and it goes on and on about the background and the time of day, and so it can give you lots of options, and then it gives you several to choose from when you're up there, and then you can again remix it. Productivity tools that are going to be good are things that can help you with lesson plans, like I've said, presentations, all these types of things that you see on here that I think we've already talked about. Even Twitter posts, I didn't mention that one. Essay graders, you know how long it takes to grade that essay. If you set the right parameters, which may take you a bit of time, it can help with that too. And I mentioned feedback. So there are many productivity tools. Perplexity, this is what is AI. This is Perplexity, another kind of ChatGPT tool. That's their response that I got from Perplexity on what it is. And it was pretty good. Sometimes they are pretty good. And you can just massage them. Quillbot is another one that's good. This has the plagiarism checker where you can put in there to see if it's AI, but you can also paraphrase something here. So you can put in you can summarize or paraphrase a really long paragraph or document. That's another one that people are using. Notion.so is another one to improve writing. So you can do this, and this gives you some writing skills. Now, there are some built into Microsoft now too, and Google for improving your students' writing. So you can also look at using those types of tools. But it'll read it and then tell you how you could change things. If you see down the bottom right here, it's crossed out writing and put however. It's kind of like the Grammarly, only it does more towards the writing content, not just the grammar. Love CurePod does awesome work. So you can do polls and word clouds and drawings and Q&As. That's a great one. How is Animal Farm an allegory for Soviet Russia and the Russian Revolution? This is one that someone had put, and they did a quick little kind of quiz activity type of thing in their lesson that they could talk about through their lesson. And then Canva has come out with several. I know a lot of people love Canva. They have Magic Write, they have image creation, and they also have a slide creation for you. So those are other tools you can use. And then Yippity. Yippity gives you quizzes and flashcards. I love all these fun names we start coming up with. It's like Flippity when we had Flippity, and now we have Yippity. So you can put your notes and things and it'll generate a quiz for them. Now, again, you're back to quizzes. So they could be as practice quizzes or flashcards. Grammarly, I mentioned to you, is coming soon with AI. It's already been great already, but now I'll give you some AI components to it. Education Copilot is awesome as well. I love it. It'll plan whole units for you. It's a 3-day trial, free trial. Then you have to pay. But check it out and see. It may be worth it. I don't think it's that much money, actually. But you give it the unit name. This is where I did the environmental science and the climate change. And it tells you what this unit should cover. All the different things on the top right. I don't know why it says ancient Egyptian religion, though. That's a thought. and then gives you standards. And then that's what I have to say you watch. But then when I got the PowerPoints and the actual plans and lesson plans and writing prompts and all these different things, it was awesome. They give you content builders, handouts, all kinds of things. So it's worth trying it out and checking it. And like I said, there are AI detectors. They're just not all accurate yet, but they're working on them. So that's one. Here's AI Writing Check by Quill. Here's that poem I wrote about Memphis. And out of 5 different AI checkers, after this lovely little poem, which was kind of fun, they did a pretty good job, quite honestly. 5 of them said it was written by a human, and I knew it wasn't. So, and this was my prompt. What I typed on that ChatGPT and that text box at the bottom looked like a search box. That was my prompt. Yeah, we're almost done here, right, for Q&As. But here's Microsoft. They've just now built AI into Bing, so that's there. You can get Edge for Windows and Macs. And then we have Copilot coming soon, if it hasn't come out already. Another one is Reading Coach. It is awesome if you're an elementary teacher, absolutely, or ESL. It's fabulous in reading progress. Speaker Coach for presentations. Google just came out with Word, so sign up for the wait list if you don't have it yet. That's another one there. Quick Draw is a good one for drawing images. It's been around a long time. And then Adobe is coming out with Firefly. That's going to be a great one. I'm on the wait list. Don't have it. Some people do. And then you have resources here. So this is an awesome video. I love this video. It's 6 or 8 minutes. We used it in our undergrad class I teach at Arizona State, Lamar University, Abilene Christian in Dallas. And we use this at ASU with our undergrad students, and it's a really good one. And then just a free guide to AI in the classroom is there. And if I were to recommend a book for you, this is what I recommend. Matt Miller has a good one too. But this is probably my favorite right now. Yes, and by the time they publish it, it's probably going to change very quickly. But there are resources out there for you. So I think that's enough of me. I hope that even if you knew a lot, that you've learned some, and even if you didn't know something, you now have some vocabulary. So let Sasha take it over now.
Hey, Julian, thank you so much for teaching us so many wonderful things about ChatGPT. I had no idea that you could generate faces of people that don't exist. And I know that that's definitely something I am putting in my toolbox. So I do have a few questions here. I want to go ahead and start with one that seems to be a trend. Do you believe that there will be a movement towards oral exams for students to avoid the usage of ChatGPT?
I don't know if it will be, I mean, there could be, I'm not sure it'll be oral, but just reflecting how we're doing exams, having it be more of a reflection on their learning about a topic rather than, I think it's a lot on how you write your question or how you create your activity. So what other things can you do? First of all, do they have to have an exam? Could they make another product or make something to demonstrate understanding? At Arizona State, we're making videos, we're doing podcasts, we're doing all types of very creative work that is not just for making memes, infographics. We're not just doing words coming out. Just thinking about how you're going to have them demonstrate their understanding, being creative in different ways, not always having a question, an essay, not always having a test, but give them multiple ways of assessment and then multiple types of assessment. And some of the times letting them choose which one is best for them. Maybe they're making a presentation and going to present. So yeah, lots of different things.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that answer. Another question that we have here is, what precautions would you issue to educators who are being encouraged to leverage ChatGPT as a tool in their secondary classrooms?
If they're being encouraged to use it with their students, what Steve's done, where they're really have kids work on it, do it, use it with a topic they're studying already. So if they're studying the Holocaust or something, let's do ChatGPT and ask them some facts that are very specific to the curricular goals and objectives. But then let's have somebody research it and let's compare it and let's see. Think about the learning that's having in those conversations between the students. He even had them blind swap them sometimes, and then had them analyze them blindly, not knowing which ones were, sometimes not knowing which ones were generated in which way, by a human or by ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's a really
So
interesting
don't be
consideration.
afraid. I think about just have them understand, it's there. Let's talk about it. How could we use this in good ways? And I think that's a big conversation.
Yeah, totally. Um, Another question that we see here, do schools need to be teaching ethical behavior regarding things like AI and Chat GPT?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's very important. I think that's important in a million ways. Yes, I think not just for AI and ChatGPT, we need to be teaching ethical behavior on, YouTube and everything they're doing and text messaging and everything. So I think that's a big part of everyday life with technology.
100%. Um, a great question that just came into the chat. What are some reactions that you're seeing and hearing potentially from parents in regards to AI and Chat GPT?
I don't know if enough parents know enough about it yet to have a reaction because it just was released to the public in March. I don't know if they've had the time to really look at it. It's come out so fast. I'm sure you're going to get the ones that hate everything about technology, already hating it still before they even really know what it is. And then you'll probably have some that'll be really interested. But I really think we're a little early in the game. And maybe some of you know, and you can put in the chat. I really don't know the answer to that question. It'll be interesting to see how they react. I also think it's how we present it to them and how we let the community know, yes, we know about it. Yes, and this is how we're doing it. And this is how we're using productive ways. And this is why we're not afraid of it, because we're talking to our kids about it and we're learning about it together.
Yeah. This
I
seems
see. What is wrong with it is what someone just said. I'm sorry. I just had to read that. That's
to
the one reaction they've heard.
Totally. I see a question here regarding the Chicago teacher that you had mentioned earlier. It says, has the teacher from Chicago started posting what he's doing anywhere? If
Yeah, Facebook.
so,
He's,
yeah, what's
he's
his name and where is he posting?
Steve Dembo, DEMBO. He's also at Teach 42. And he's doing great things with the school. He's worked with Discovery Education, and now he's back with the students, and he's loving it.
Lovely. All right, I'm just going through these questions.
We had a panel discussion up there, and we even had two professors from the Lake Forest Community College. One was in writing, and actually, we had three. One was in art, one was in writing, and one focused on on AI. His research and doctoral work was on AI. And it was really interesting to see even how the college level writing teachers are engaging it and using it, because they realized maybe the writing prompts for those essays weren't always the best they could have been because they were too easily mimicked by ChatGPT. So I think it's just a time to reset and rethink and do things in different ways.
Yeah. 100%. I'm seeing a lot of questions regarding the materials from today's session. These will be available, sent to you out after the webinar is done within 24 business hours. And I'm sure that we can include the name that you just mentioned, as well as his social links and all of that
Sure.
for people who are looking to reference
Sasha,
that.
may I comment on one other one? I see they'd like to have a webinar on how to use these tools in higher ed, and I'd love that. The one
Yeah.
thing I will also tell you that we did Arizona State, and it wasn't me. This is a class of like 500 to 600 students with Dr. Janelle White Taylor, a good friend of mine, is the lead, and 21 of us as co-instructors. And a lot of them are in the Starbucks program. Make your kids work at Starbucks and get a free degree. But the thing I was going to say is we gave them a choice board of several tools, and they had to pick off that choice board some of those ChatGPT AI tools and create something with them and show their artifacts and then have a reflection on them. So that's kind of a good way they could share that out together.
Yeah. I'm seeing a question that's kind of not exactly aligned to education, but is really interesting to say the least. It says here, I've seen a lot of artists upset because programs like Midjourney sample work that is out there in order to blend imagery into the new AI created art.
Yeah, and you know
So there's a
what?
lot of controversy in that artist community. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I absolutely agree, and especially because one of the people in our the instructor who is his background, the professor whose background was on technology and AI, um, he actually found a piece of his own art out there being used in ChatGPT. He saw it out there. And so that is another thing. You know, you think about music and all the controversy with copyright and how they're losing money because of that. And the same thing, yes, exactly, Sierra. And the same thing with art as well. So that's a big controversy. If it has the original piece, you know, I think that would be good. This is a AI generated or a chat GPT generated piece of with you based on the original work of. I think that would be a good solution if you can find that. So it is it's again problematic. You know, it's something we're all working through. I think it's only been March, and this is what, April 25th. So you know, we're all still learning and growing.
Yeah. And I think that might be one of the reasons places like College Board hasn't accepted something like Chat GPT yet, because it's still so new and still so much to discover about it.
Yeah, I love what Chris just said because I've seen this, Chris. Some of the image generators will come out with like the a copyright symbol that goes with it. So yeah, in the chat you'll can see that. So it's growing, and hopefully they'll get enough feedback that it'll change. Yeah, and it's interesting. I think it's interesting to see how the colleges are working. Because I know even Janelle's daughter, we were in Chicago, and her daughter was texting her. She was getting ready to take one of her exams, ACT or SATs, and mom was going, "Don't worry. Remember, she was at two California universities, big ones, because we're looking at those." And the admissions director at both schools said, "Don't worry about those exams. We're not looking at them that much anymore. We're really going to look at who you are and what you're doing." And I think that's so much more powerful. And I think K-12 needs to embrace that in many ways as well. But we're not going to be able to change the world all at once, but one small step at a time, we can.
Yep, Rome was not built in a day. All right, and so now the juiciest question saved for last.
Uh-oh.
Um, do you think that this technology could potentially eliminate in-person teaching?
I don't think so. Absolutely not. Because people have always been afraid of technology taking away the teacher. You have to have that same student interaction. I have a student right now. Let me tell you this. I have a student right now at Arizona State, and I've been talking to him a lot because he's in a course, and this isn't even Chat GPT or AI, but it's all virtual. The professor doesn't ever talk to them. The assistant, the grad student, doesn't ever talk to them. He feels so lost and lonely in that class. And it's all about relationships. It's about being that cheerleader for their student, having them find their way. I don't think that'll ever happen. It's just going to help us guide them to be more creative and productive members of the society, just like as ChatGPT and AI. Are they going to take over? You know, if all the McDonald's employees go away because of those McDonald's, what are they going to do? Well, then we have a great workforce that we need to educate to use to do more meaningful and powerful work, especially things to improve the greater good.
100%. Well, Julian, thank you so much for your time and for your information and knowledge. I know that I, including everyone else here, definitely learned something new today. Just to recap, this was Exploring Chat GPT and AI in Education with Dr. Julian Reed, sponsored by Kognity and hosted by EdWeb. As a reminder, you can access Kognity using this QR code or the website kognity.com/NGSS. It is a great tool to incorporate different ways of engagement into your current classrooms. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you for attending.